Occasionally someone will send me an original piece to be duplicated, and you have to look at the piece and try and think of the reason it was made and when it was made and what they had to make it with, and can I make the piece? Case in point would be a 1703 chocolate pot that I made for a historic site a few years back. And despite it looking pretty simple, it's the most difficult piece I make. More hours in this than in a lot of other pieces. And it's as close to the original as I could possibly get it. And it makes you wonder why, in the name of Pete, the original pots were made this way, because there's a lot of easier ways of making it. And this one it's interesting. It's early, 1703. It's cramp seamed, tin lined, has a recessed bottom, which is way recessed, almost 3/4 of an inch. Actually, the bottom sits at the waist level in the pot. The pot is a taper. The rivets holding everything together are 1/8 of an inch hand rolled copper. The maple handle is burned on, so it doesn't turn, doesn't rotate on the handle stem itself. The lid is one piece of copper hammered that depth and over just a plain straight up rim. There's no edging on the rim. It's an unusual piece. It's difficult to do, but it's nice to have a piece that comes out looking exactly like an original piece. And it's not that easy to do. And this is a chocolate pot, of course. The hole in the lid is for a muller, which is a tool that goes inside the pot and stirs up the chocolate, keeps the sediments from settling. And it would go on like that and be used similar to this. Very interesting piece, very difficult piece. Making the tools to make this pot took a couple of months, on and off and on and off and on and off, and a lot of frustrating wooden pieces that went in a wood stove until they finally got one that made the copper work that you see in front of you. But there you are. You want a 1703 chocolate pot that's as right as rain and is absolutely at home in almost any museum. There it is. The original for this was never actually in my hands. I had a couple of dozens of photographs from every angle and every perspective you could think of, and a lot of descriptions. And it took me months and months just to work up enough courage to start it. I keep looking at it and looking at the pictures, not knowing where to start. And it probably took 6 months total before I could actually get in my mind where to start the piece and how to make it and what they started with. The lid itself took about 8 annealings, or what they called them in 18th century, 8 lights, heating up to a reddish color and then quenched in water to make the metal soft, to hammer it in place. The body itself took 4 or 5. So there's way more to this little piece than meets the eye. And yet it's a very simple looking tapered chocolate pot, barely tapered chocolate pot. The original waist on the piece that I had the pictures of had hammer marks all over the place, and I've left quite a few in there. It's not the easiest thing to do, and the lid is terribly hard to do. It's got that step in the middle of it and a little sliding gate, which in itself is a little tough to figure out. Again, an 1/8 of an inch rolled copper rivet. I've made 3/16 of an inch rolled copper rivets, but I could never make an 1/8 of an inch. It took a few months of trimming my 3/16 pattern down to get it to an 1/8 of an inch. And even then I have more failures than successes. And then you have to make a tool to head the rivet before you can actually use the rivet. So everything is a process, and hopefully if you've done everything right, like I say, in 2.5 days, you can have one of those little puppies sitting on your workbench, ready for some chocolate. I would love to have an answer as to why they made it in the manner they did. Some of the things, the bottom and the lid, are difficult pieces. I can think of, a dozen easier ways of doing it, but they chose to make this, and this is not the only example. This one is from a French original. I've seen 2 or 3 Dutch originals, basically the same pot, the same construction techniques. It is a definite challenge to make a piece like this. It's also an absolutely, positively amazing connection with the guy who made the first one. because now you're making something that he would recognize. He would look it over and say, "Oh, you should have done this, so and so," or "Oh, what the heck did you do here? This would have been better if you'd done so and so." But all that information's gone, so all I can do is this. But yes, it's an amazing link with the past. It's it's feeling that guy finishing the thing up on his workbench, putting it on the side for a customer or for in his store. And here I just did one, and it's the exact same thing as what he would have done, And you wonder, what did he think of it? Did he think, would mine be as good as his, sitting next to him, next to the original? It's interesting. And what did he do when he was finished this? Did he go out and he had lunch? Did he have a cold beer? It's amazing to wonder about the people who did this stuff, and that's another amazing connection. But it's like, to borrow a phrase, it's that wormhole with the past. You have this link, that's this piece of stuff between you and a craftsman 200 years ago, 300 years ago, in this case 314 years ago, and it's amazing. It's amazing to turn something out and say, I think that's as good as what you did. Maybe, I hope. What do you think? I'd love to get an answer to that question, but I guess I won't.